Today we're working on a 2005 Toyota 4Runner, doing the rear brakes on this thing. This is cover from years 2003 to 2019 on the Toyota 4Runner. But this also covers, is similar to, I want to say covers, but similar to Lexus and Toy models of the GX460, the GX470, the LX450s, obviously the 4Runners, the FJ Cruisers, Land Cruisers, Sequoias, and the Hilux, Toyota Hilux. So similar to, so what I mean by that is if you're trying to do the rear brakes on this, this will be a good guide if you're working on those other models as well. So right here I have what you need to do this job. Right there you got a floor jack. You need a jack stand, keep yourself safe. You need the brake cleaner, you need a good set of rear brake pads. I like to go with the Bosch Quiet Casts. Part number is BC606. BC606. Comes with everything you need in there. Clips, the grease you need, pads. Some kits don't come with clips or new hardware, so you can always reuse the old stuff, and that's where the brake cleaner will come into play. Got a hammer, got a 17mm wrench, got a C-clamp, got Permatex silicone ceramic extreme brake parts lubricant. This will go on your slide pins. Got myself a Milwaukee gun, half-inch gun with a 21mm socket for the 21mm lug nuts. A rag. Links to all this stuff, the pads, the gun, and the Permatex silicone lubricant will be in the description below. So if you need those, you can pick it up there. But enough talk, let's get started. So first thing you want to do, I'm going to put the jack stand, or the jack under there, raise it up, and then secure it with a jack stand, and then start taking off the wheel. One thing I forgot to point out to you is a toothbrush. This is a kid's toothbrush, and you can use this to clean up the old hardware if need be. If the kit you get doesn't have new hardware, just get an old toothbrush to clean it up. So right in front of the rear wheel, right here, I'm going to use this as a jacking point to jack up the vehicle. And I just chalk the front wheel as well, just to make sure it doesn't go anywhere. So, probably like most of you that are doing this job, you don't have a two-car post in your garage like some YouTubers do. So I'm showing you how to do it the nitty-gritty way with a good old-fashioned floor jack. This is a 6-ton floor jack I'm putting in place. Gotta go up a little bit higher. The reason you do this is you don't want the you don't want this vehicle coming down and crush you. I'll put a link in the description below of where I interviewed a guy who had a car actually fall on him. So it's not fun. All right, got the wheel off. Here's your rotor. Here's your brake caliper bracket. Here's your caliper. You have two slide pins right here. These are 17mm. One here, one right there. Righty tighty, lefty loosey. We got to get these off to get access to the brake pads, which are right here. This is the hardware I was talking about. If your new kit doesn't come with it, you can always reuse this stuff. And one of the best slide pin grease I found is that Permatex stuff. But like I said earlier, I'll put a link in the description to it where you can pick it up on Amazon. Let's get started. These two bolts are 17mm. Got a wrench right here. Sometimes they're really, really stuck on there. So what I'll do, I'll use the hammer that I have, and I'll hit the hammer. I'll hit the wrench right here, not with the metal, but on the side right here to break it loose. Righty tighty, lefty loosey. So it's actually going down to loosen up. There's one. There's two. So on the other side, this is actually the driver's side. On the passenger side, you would hit the hammer up, the wrench up, to get it loose. I'm not going to show you the other side because the other side is exactly the same as this side. Some guys like to open up the bleeder screw when they do the brakes, but that's just stupid. Don't do that. That just shows your lack of experience. Shows that you're a novice. There's no need to open up the hydraulic system when you do a brake job, unless you're replacing the brake caliper itself and you have to. Do not open that up, because it just allows for mistakes to be made, for air to get into the system, and you're spending half the day trying to bleed out your brake system. So don't do that. I know there's all kinds of comments online. Oh, you gotta crack your bleeder screw when you do a brake job. No, you don't. Shut up. Bunch of little girls. Okay, so here we go. Here's the slide pins. As you can see, so there's a light coating of grease right here. It keeps the pins sliding inside here, because this is actually a floating caliper, which means it moves back and forth and it slides on these pins. We're going to get some brake cleaner, clean all this stuff off, and put some new Permatex on it. The pins are the same. Sometimes they're different, and sometimes you'll see right here on the end little rubber pieces. I always cut those off. There's no need for them. I'll put a link in the description below where I go over theory and application of rubber on your pins. Looks like a condom on your pin, but I'll talk about that too. Alright, so we'll take those out. Okay, with the two pins out, you can just grab it right here, wiggle it back and forth, put it up on top. Do not let it hang from your brake hose or from the brake line hose. Here are your old brake pads. Go in here, grab them, just work them out. Sometimes you can use a wrench. That was a little bit stuck because it has the sensor right here. This sensor, when the pad wears down really far, the sensor comes and makes contact with the rotor, which makes a squeaking sound. So in this hand, here's the old brake pad. Here's the brand new brake pad. You can see the difference in the thickness of the braking material, brake pad material. See that? So nice and thick that is. This is worn out. Customer's complaint was making a lot of noise when braking. Right here, here's the brake hardware. I'm going to clean this up. Spraying some brake clean all of it. This looks like Toyota OE hardware. So instead of replacing it, because this is really good hardware and it's not rusted or looking real bad condition, I'm just going to clean this up with my toothbrush. Some brake clean, some toothbrush, take some time, some elbow grease, and clean this up and then re-grease it. I tend to find that Toyota hardware is better than any aftermarket hardware you can get out there. So I'd rather take my time and clean it up. Get my rag. Get in there, just wipe it clean. Looking good, looking good. So the deal with this is once we get all this hardware cleaned up, we'll go in there with some Permatex lubricant made specifically for brakes. Put a light coating, put a little bit on your finger, just swipe it and be done. That way the brake pad has some lubricant when it's trying to move back and forth with the caliper itself. Another thing, do not touch the surface with your greasy hands. I've seen videos online where the guys will do this and they just put their dirty paws all over that. That's your braking surface. This is life and death right here. This is going to go on the rotor. Don't put your nasty, grimy hands on that. Bunch of idiots. Okay, got that all cleaned up. Next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to push this piston back into the caliper, the brake caliper. What you do to do that is you get your old, one of your old brake pads, right? You put it here on the piston, and then you get yourself a C-clamp, and you slowly push it back. There's not a whole lot to it. So just push it back slowly. No need to rush on this. You're just pushing hydraulic fluid back. Two things you want to do after you do this is check the fluid level in your brake reservoir. And the second thing you want to do before you go anywhere, before you drive the car, after you do this job, is push the brake pedal down 10 times. Don't start the vehicle. Just get in your vehicle and push the brake pedal 10 times. Because you want this piston to come out and make contact with the new pads so that it's grabbing the rotor. Otherwise you go down the street and you won't have any brakes. Okay, so that's pushed all the way back. So stay right there. There's some smudge right here I don't like. Gonna clean that up. Got the slide pins here, gonna clean that up. Just get some brake cleaner. Spray them down with brake clean, get your rag, and get all the old brake grease off of it. That's all you gotta do. If this is really rusted, you could take it to a wire wheel and clean it up. Okay, these are ready for the new grease. Got my Permatex brake parts lubricant. This stuff is like pink or red in color. All I gotta do, take a little bit on your finger. Hard to see at the color of my glove. Just lube it up. Let's apply a light coating. And this way, this prevents the caliper slide pin from seizing up in your caliper bracket. If that happens to you, I do have a video online where I go over how to fix that. Turns a simple brake job into a 5-hour process. So just lube it up and they're good to go. You're ready to put them back in. Let's lube the brake caliper hardware. Okay, so the hardware is all cleaned up. Just take a little bit of Permatex and just apply a light coating in there. Do not touch the rotor. You don't want this on the rotor. If you, oh, see, I got a little bit on the rotor right there. So after I do this, I'll take some brake parts cleaner and clean that off, but just go around. Do this to all 4 hardware points. Doing the back right now. Just a light coating, you don't need a whole lot. I'm going to check and make sure the pins slide in there nice and easy like. Yep, they sure do. If there's any sticking or binding when you did this, you can always go spray some brake cleaner in there, clean it out. But they seem to be good, so I'll start putting everything back together. Just installing the new pads. I took off my gloves because I don't want to run the risk of getting any kind of contaminants on the brake pad surface. Okay, got the first rear brake pad in. I took off my gloves because I don't like to run the risk of getting any of that old grease that was on the glove onto the new pad with a rotor. So just working the new pads in. Okay, there we go. Bring in the brake caliper. Just remember to pump your brake pedal 10 times before you go anywhere. Bring in the caliper slide pin. Make sure it goes through the rubber part. Okay, that one's so tight. Top one's tight. Tighten the bottom one. Bring in the 17mm wrench. Make sure it's tight. Alright, there you go. That's it. That's how you change the rear brake pads on a Toyota 4Runner. And I'll put a whole list of all the vehicles that this covers in the description below. But if you guys can, please consider subscribing to Bundys Garage on YouTube. And like always, I'll keep them rolling for you.